Changes to the charter are long overdue. Our governance structure is unnecessarily complicated, and it's difficult for citizens and our administrative staff to navigate. And this causes the line of authority and accountability to be unclear. A city council member is elected to represent the unique needs of the citizens in their ward. The mayor is elected citywide and is responsible to advance a shared agenda affirmed by the citizens and benefiting the entire city. Now, I've held both these positions, and I know firsthand how those lines can and have been blurred and undermined. Now, I'm a strong believer in shared power and authority, but it's time to state clearly and succinctly in the city charter that the mayor is the chief executive authority in the city and that the city council has legislative authority. I believe the mayor, who is elected citywide, should have the authority to appoint all of the city department heads for a period of time consistent with the mayor's 4-year term, and that the city council should maintain the right to approve or reject those nominations. Minneapolis does not need 14 mayors. Minneapolis needs 1 chief executive and 13 strong city council members with legislative responsibility and authority.
Our city needs a strong executive, the mayor. When I was the city's finance officer, I saw numerous occasions where city council members gave confusing directions and requests to my fellow city leaders. It was confusing, expensive, and time-consuming. This is not the way our city should be led.
Hi, I'm Don Samuels. I'm former council member in the city of Minneapolis for 3 terms, a resident of the 5th Ward, and where I was a council member, and where Sandra and I raised 3 girls, and a couple of our girls from birth to college. So I've lived in the community for a long time and experienced the disparities of our community and experienced the challenges of city government, especially to deliver services and resources to communities like mine. It's hard to get things done in the city of Minneapolis. People complain a lot. Why is it so easy to get things done in St. Paul and not Minneapolis? The answer is really simple. Minneapolis city staff has 14 bosses. That means the mayor and 13 council members. So to get anything done, you have to persuade the mayor and 7 council members to get a majority to get anything done. Now that makes day-to-day execution of policy and decision-making for departments very, very slow, tedious, and sometimes impossible. But when it comes to an emergency, an urgent situation, which requires a quick response, where it's not a month-by-month decision, but an hour-by-hour decision to make our communities safe, then 14 bosses is absolutely ridiculous. And it leads to problems in decision-making and hesitation and inefficiencies that cost lives and eventually lead to great disparities between one community and another. And we saw that at play in 2020 after George Floyd was killed, when decisions had to be made around public safety as the riots started to increase across the city, and especially in my community where most of the violence has happened and is still happening. To take that back is going to be a painful and difficult process, and the City Charter Commission is trying to help us by changing the charter to give more authority to the mayor and more authority over city department heads as any other mayor. Minneapolis is called a weak mayor system vis-a-vis a strong mayor system. It's really not that. It's a weak mayor system vis-a-vis a regular mayor system. And what we want is a regular mayor, not a strong mayor, a regular mayor like other cities of our size have, so that this mayor can strongly come out, create a plan for the restoration of safety. And now we have an opportunity through this charter change proposed by the Charter Commission to set things right for the people of Minneapolis, especially the people who need it most, my neighbors in North Minneapolis. Thank you.
It was great to hear from some of our city leaders about their support for a more responsive and accountable city government. To have equity in our city, we need to have a city government that works and can deliver services equitably to all residents. Why now? This is not a new problem. Ever since our original charter was passed in 1920, there have been regular efforts to improve the government structure of Minneapolis, including efforts by former mayors Hubert Humphrey and Don Frazier. So again, why now? The events of 2020 demonstrated that Minneapolis city government proved ill-equipped to provide the necessary coordinated strategic response to limit the chaos and damage to our city. How do we get a city government that works for all of us? We can vote yes on City Question 1, Government Structure, Executive Mayor, Legislative Council. It clarifies roles and responsibilities of the mayor and city council. It provides a path to make our city government more accountable, efficient, and responsive. It would enable reform of the police department and not eliminate it. What's the problem? This cartoon was in the Star Tribune in 2004, entitled Minneapolis, Who's in Charge? And it clearly illustrates what the Minneapolis Charter Commission found this year when it studied city government after last summer's civil unrest. This is their conclusion in their final report, quoted from them. President Harry Truman famously quipped, "The buck stops here." In Minneapolis, the buck stops nowhere, and yet everywhere, leading to organizational confusion, costly duplication of efforts, lack of centralized control and coordination, and, especially under stress, chaos. We have a 14-boss problem in Minneapolis. Department heads report to our mayor, elected citywide and representing about 435,000 residents, and 13 council members, each elected by their ward to represent fewer than 34,000 residents. Charter department heads receive direction from many sources: the mayor, the council, and its standing committees, the independent audit and executive committees, and individual council members. Whose direction should city staff follow? Having 14 bosses is a difficult work environment. It makes it harder for our city to keep highly qualified professionals. 8 charter department heads have left the city in the last 2 years during their appointed terms. This high rate of turnover is very unusual, and it's not good for our city. The benefits of having stability and continuity in city government include consistently excellent services and safe streets. Former elected officials and charter department heads unanimously stated in a recent Charter Commission report that our current structure lacks accountability, is too complex and inefficient. What does this mean for city residents? We pay more for diminished services. You can link to this report from the Charter4Change website. Here are 3 examples of the 14-boss problem. During last year's civil unrest, some council members gave direct orders to the police officers, making the situation more dangerous and contributing to mass confusion. Council members routinely give orders to department heads and staff that conflict with city policy. department heads have reported threats of retaliation if these orders aren't followed. In 2020, city council members stripped from the chief of police and mayor some key tools to enable police reform. Here's an organizational chart of the current Minneapolis city government. Each charter department head, in the box outlined in red, directs essential city services that we rely on. The appointing authority of these department heads is the Executive Committee, added in 1984 Charter Amendment Compromise sponsored by Mayor Don Frazier. The Executive Committee includes the mayor, the City Council President, the 3 additional council members. The mayor recommends department head appointments to the Executive Committee for approval, which then sends the appointments to the council for approval. All of these department heads, with the sole exception of the police department, report to the mayor and to council committees. But, as noted earlier, all department heads, including the police chief, receive direction from many sources: the mayor, the council and its standing committees, the independent audit and executive committees, and individual council members. Minneapolis city government is a $1.5 billion enterprise with 3,800 employees, but there is no executive officer running this enterprise, no one in charge of getting the job done. This is the visual of the City Question 1 government structure executive mayor legislative council proposal. This is similar to St. Paul's government structure, as well as most major cities in the United States. Minneapolis's current structure is an outlier. Under the new structure, all voters in the city elect the mayor, who has the administrative responsibility for overseeing city operations, and the executive committee is eliminated. The mayor would recruit and nominate highly qualified department heads, propose the tax levy and city budget, and make sure the city council's ordinances and policies are implemented. Voters in each ward elect their council members, who by ordinance would define city services such as garbage collection with recycling and organics, snow plowing, regulatory services, and more, set the tax levy, approve the city budget, and with the expanded office of the auditor at their disposal, similar to our state legislative auditor, Jim Nobles, monitor the implementation of the laws and policies they've passed. This is no power grab. Separating executive and legislative functions is modeled after our federal and state governments with independent branches. The legislative branches draft laws, and the executive branches implement them. Why is this better for the people of Minneapolis? It creates a balanced form of government. The mayor, elected citywide, has the responsibility and authority to direct city department heads to provide equitable city services for all. Council members elected by ward have the responsibility and authority to advocate for equitable city services to their constituents. Clear direction to department heads by the mayor ensures coordination, wiser spending of our tax dollars, and improved city services. Alignment of authority and responsibility ensures accountability. The people of our city will know who is responsible for getting the work of the city done. Public safety functions are consolidated, including prevention services, and coordinated under the administrative direction of the mayor and with the council retaining its policy role. The existing charter requirement for a police department and police chief is retained. Who is recommending this amendment? The Charter Commission, which is required under our state constitution for home rule cities like Minneapolis. These volunteer members, based on their knowledge and experience in local government, are appointed by the Chief Judge of Hennepin County. They are representative of our city, from 11 of our 13 wards, 7 women 8 men, and 4 people of color. The Charter Commission is like our own think tank. They've studied our city structure this year, as well as researched how other cities across the country are structured. They have proposed City Question 1, Government Structure, Executive Mayor Legislative Council Amendment to solve the 14-boss problem. You, the voter, get to make the final decision. This is the ballot language for City Question 1, Government Structure, Executive Mayor Legislative Council. I'll give you a minute to read this yourselves. Who supports the Charter Commission's proposed amendment? Citizens like you and me. Charter Commission members unanimously. Former council presidents and current former council members. Former mayors. Current and former Minneapolis department heads. League of Women Voters. This fall, there will be 3 charter amendments on the city ballot. To become law, a charter amendment must receive 51% of the votes cast on that ballot measure only, not 51% of the total votes in the election. If passed, the charter amendment goes into effect 30 days after the election. City Question 1. Government Structure, Executive Mayor Legislative Council. City Question 2. Department of Public Safety. City Question 3. Authorizing City Council to enact rent control ordinance. This slide shows the new city organization chart if City Question 1 passes, solving the 14-boss problem. It would establish the mayor as the chief executive, maintain the council as the legislative body, and eliminate the executive committee. It clarifies that all charter department heads would report to the mayor. This proposal establishes a balanced form of government. It maintains official council action to define policy and gives the mayor the authority to implement that policy. This alignment of city departments under the mayor would provide coordination, wiser spending of city funds, and lead to innovation and reform. If you want the police department reformed but not eliminated, the Charter Commission's proposal provides that path. This slide is an illustration of Minneapolis's government structure if both the Executive Mayor Legislative Council and Department of Public Safety proposals pass. To the extent that their proposals are not in conflict, many experts believe both would be implemented, and any inconsistencies would need to be resolved by the courts. The Public Safety Amendment would eliminate from the Charter the police department and position of police chief, the minimum requirement for police, and the funding requirement. In the Charter would be a new Department of Public Safety led by a commissioner, and with law enforcement if necessary. As we noted in the previous slide, the Government Structure Amendment would establish the executive mayor as the appointing authority for all department heads, which would include the new Commissioner of Public Safety. The 14-boss problem would be resolved. But to be clear, no charter amendment can do the following: give us a better contract between the City of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Federation of Police. Our city leaders should and must negotiate that for us. None have the ability to end state laws requiring mandatory arbitration in police discipline cases. None have the ability to end qualified immunity required under a federal judicial doctrine, but which could be ended by the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act under consideration in Congress right now. This slide illustrates city government structure if the Department of Public Safety proposals pass, but the Executive Mayor Legislative Council does not. In this case, our 14-boss problem continues. As we noted in the previous slide, the Public Safety Amendment would eliminate from the Charter the Police Department and the position of Police Chief, the minimum requirement for police, and the funding requirement. In the Charter would be a new Department of Public Safety, with law enforcement only if necessary, led by a commissioner who would report to the mayor and the council, 14 bosses. The proposal removes the mayor's executive oversight, authority, and responsibility for police reform. We believe our city is united in a shared vision for the future. A just city that addresses systemic racism, provides equitable housing, education, job training, and jobs. A safe city that transforms policing, supports the Department of Justice investigation of the Minneapolis Police Department. A collaborative city that partners with Hennepin County for necessary social services, seeks public safety reform from the state. Vote yes on City Question 1, Government Structure, Executive Mayor, Legislative Council proposal for a city government that is more responsive, effective, accountable, works for all of us. Please visit our website, share it with your friends, colleagues, and neighbors. We invite you to join us as a supporter and give us permission to list you as a supporter on our website. Please let us know of any groups you think would appreciate receiving this presentation.